My blissful self. Today, let us continue about forgiveness. The earth has the maximum power of forgiveness. We dig the earth, we walk on the earth, we quarrel, we fight battles, wars, and world wars. But the earth tolerates all these. So the earth is called as goddess. So those who have the characteristic of forgiveness can uplift their clan. We have to forgive always. The characteristic of water is coldness. Even if we heat the water and boil it and pour into the fire finishes. Even if we heat the water, it doesn't give up the characteristic of coldness. So, the characteristic of water is to remain cold. In the same way, the individual soul takes birth in 84 lakhs of lives, but the soul doesn't lose the characteristic of forgiveness. So, the characteristic of Atman is forgiveness. Generally, we forgive people, but we have to forgive when we are in misery to the maximum extent. This is called real forgiveness. If we keep dirty water in a glass, so the dirt settles at the bottom of the glass and the water becomes clean. In the same way, a particular person becomes very angry and after some time he becomes calm. Again, if we shake the bottle, the dirt that has been settled at the bottom of the glass comes to the surface. In the same way, the intellect of man becomes once calm, and again it becomes unrest. But the characteristic of forgiveness of Atman never destroys. So usually people show forgiveness for their relatives like father, mother, husband, wife, children, brothers and sisters, etc. But they don't forgive others. So the mother-in-law in the house usually is partial to the daughter and daughter-in-law. She abuses the daughter-in-law but loves her daughter. If this is the case, how there will be happiness in the house? But if the mother-in-law treats the daughters and the daughter-in-law impartially, so there will be happiness in the house. In the house, generally people do mistakes. To err is human, and to forgive is divine. People generally do mistakes because they are ignorant. And if we teach them to the power of reason and make them to understand to behave in a better way, they will behave well. The people make mistakes, but we have to forgive them. We do all types of evil actions because we think that there is happiness in the sensory objects. But if we try to know whether the happiness is there in the sensory objects or there is no happiness in them, we'll come to know that there is no happiness in sensory objects. And if we know this, that the happiness is not there in the sensory objects, then we will be in a position to commit, we will not commit any mistakes or we harm others. But the enjoyment of sensory objects ends in tiresomeness and weariness. If we obtain the desired sensory object, then our mind becomes calm. And in the calm mind, the bliss of our Atman is experienced. So, if we understand this well, that there is no happiness in sensory objects, then we will stop doing evil actions. If we have no anger, but if in our mind there is enmity, that is no forgiveness at all. So this enmity leads to revenge attitude towards others. The attitude of enmity is like fire. The state of forgiveness is like water. The, the enmity cannot be satisfied by enmity, but the enmity can be only satisfied by love. If there is enmity, there will be no expression of peace on the face. The absence of anger is called forgiveness. One's own anger is one's own enemy. One's own peace is one's own friend. Usually, we think that our enemies are outside us, but really, our enemies are in our mind only. There are six enemies in our mind, namely desire, anger, infatuation, greed, egoism, and jealousy. If the desire is not satisfied, that results into anger. Then our intellect becomes hypnotized by anger. So our intellect loses the power of reason, and man talks as he likes. and does evil actions as he likes. When he has been hypnotized by anger, his intellect cannot reason which is happiness and not happiness, which is self and non self, which is truth and untruth, which is morality and no morality. Like this, he does all types of evil actions and gets lower births like dogs and pigs. So that man who has anger is no man at all. So if they are men or gods and goddesses, and if they become angry, they are no men and gods and goddesses at all. The form is of man, but they do beastly and ghostly activities. They are beasts and goats only. So if we have to conquer anger, we have to observe the rule of forgiveness. Let there happen anything, but we should not give up forgiveness. When man becomes angry, he becomes a beast and a ghost. So there doesn't remain any peace at all. He loses the tolerance completely. He deceives others and he deceives himself. He quarrels with others and becomes enemy to others. He is destroyed completely. During anger, he talks harsh words. If others insult him, the man of forgiveness thinks that they are ignorant. So they do evil actions. The people of forgiveness are blissful. They possess love, humility, etc. The person who has forgiveness, humility, is the only educated man. Bhagavan Mahavir says, I forgive all people of the whole world who do evil actions, and let them all forgive me. I give up enmity of all, and let them give up enmity towards me. I love all. So, in this way, forgiveness leads to liberation, and liberation leads to permanent happiness. And if at all, if we have to be happy, so we have to rule or we have to observe the rule of forgiveness. Then only we will become permanently happy. By this, I end my talk.